Right now, Amy Coney Barrett is going through some hearings to become a Supreme Court justice. And it is painful to watch. It's a waste of time. It's not a hearing for her job. It is just a campaign rally with unhinged nonsense. But to be fair, Democrats are doing a pretty good job of keeping things relatively tame. They're trying to focus on healthcare. That's their big play. Because if they pull off something akin to what happened with Brett Kavanaugh, they're worried what's called the Kavanaugh Effect will ignite voters and help Donald Trump. Well, S.E. Cupp from CNN believes the inverse will happen. And the fact that Donald Trump has nominated Amy Coney Barrett, a religious conservative, is going to ignite Democrats. I'm not entirely convinced, but we'll see what S.E. has to say. I'm not convinced because Trump already won. The confirmation is probably going to happen. And more importantly, the Democrats can't control their allies in the media. When I say allies, I say they're not one and the same. Often these people in media are rooting for Democrats, but they're too stupid to figure out what's going on and why it's happening. You see, Democrats are trying to keep this hearing tame. Yes, they're going to challenge Amy Coney Barrett on certain key issues, notably health care, some other issues pertaining to the economy, etc., LGBTQ rights and things like that. But for the most part, they're trying to tone it down because they do not want to ignite conservatives or religious folk. The media can't help themselves, though. And I kid you not, I saw probably the stupidest thing ever. And I decided, you know what? Let's trash the hearings. I want to talk to you about what the hearings are supposed to be. I want to talk to you about what the hearings used to be. It's really simple. Donald Trump could appoint anybody. What if he appointed, I don't know, like a farmer? You'd be like, yeah, you're not a legal scholar. I don't think you should be on the Supreme Court. So the Senate confirms. They would listen to this individual, ask them questions. They're clearly not qualified. Gotta go. It is basically precedent, tradition, that the president will choose a federal judge, meaning they've already been vetted. They already have the skills, we know, and it's a very clean-cut process. In fact, Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg were unanimously, I believe for the most part, not entirely, but I think Scalia may have been one of them. I'll show you. And what we're seeing now is the rapid polarization of this country. It used to be, you're a Supreme Court justice, or you're a federal judge, you're going to be on the Supreme Court. Tell me about your qualifications. That sounds good to me. You're qualified. Have a nice day. Now it's political campaign BS and a desperate media that said Amy Coney Barrett uses the offensive term sexual preference to refer to LGBTQ people who she falsely claims she's never discriminated against. Democrats warned against doing this kind of thing. And what's happening now? Loads of people in the media, progressive activists and Democrat activists are attacking Amy Coney Barrett on the basis of her religion because they can't help themselves. Brett Kavanaugh was one of the most contentious Supreme Court confirmations ever. And this happened in the middle of Donald Trump's first term. It's absolutely insane how polarized everything has become. And it's not Trump's fault. Kavanaugh was confirmed 50 votes to 48. Now, that's a far cry from Scalia or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The polarization in this country is getting absolutely insane. The attacks on Amy Coney Barrett are absolutely unhinged. Sexual preference is offensive now? I don't even know what's going on. I didn't get that memo. But this is what's happening. In defiance of what Democrats were hoping for, members of the media and even some Democrats are going after her for ridiculous reasons, proving, in my opinion, the hearings are a sham, she'll be confirmed, and everything's just probably in a downward spiral anyway. How do we get back to the point where Democrats and Republicans were like mostly in agreement? I don't know. I really don't. Because the polarization isn't the fault of Trump as much as the left wants to claim it is. Trump got elected because of serious problems happening in our country. For too long, the American voter was complacent to just sit back, watch it all happen, and vote D or R. Some swing voters looking for some real answers. Well, now people have woken up because this country is dealing with serious issues. And I will say, in my opinion, the far left has gone ridiculously far left. Donald Trump now banning critical race theory is reversing some of this. And I think that lends itself to a Donald Trump victory. But we don't know for sure. Maybe this will result in a reverse Kavanaugh effect for the Democrats. Well, let's do this. Let me start by showing you the stupidest smear in the world. Before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. There are many ways you can give. There's a P.O. box you want to send me stuff. But the best thing you can do is share this video if you think so. If you think it's good enough. I'm tired, man. I really am watching this. I watched the hearings yesterday on and off. I'm watching them today, and it is just a serious waste of time for everyone involved. We know what's going to happen. It's going to be a party line vote. The Democrats are going to say no. The Republicans are going to say yes. The Republicans are going to win, and everyone just complains in between. This polarization cannot be, we cannot continue this way. But if you think I do a good job and I'm rational at least, then sharing the video does help. And don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I want to talk mostly about polarization, but let's at least highlight the problem of what this hearing represents and why the media is at fault on this one. Business Insider. Amy Coney Barrett uses offensive term sexual preference. She falsely claims she's never discriminated against LGBTQ people. Are they trying to imply that by saying this she is? Let me ask y'all a question. Have you ever heard that the phrase sexual preference is offensive? I never have. And, well, I don't try to offend people. Why should she be attacked for saying something under the assumption she knows what she's doing? Believe it or not, they're claiming it's a dog whistle, that she is secretly signaling to the far right that she's anti-LGBTQ. Are you nuts? What is going on in this country, man? Look at this. Supreme Court nominee Judge Amy Coney Barrett used the widely denounced term sexual preference to refer to LGBTQ Americans' orientation during her Senate confirmation hearing on Tuesday, sparking widespread criticism from LGBTQ rights advocates and others. Is that the only thing they could muster? Because I'll tell you this, the word orientation. Do you know where the word orientation comes from? It comes from the Latin orient, meaning from the east, which is widely used to describe Asian countries, and it is considered racist and offensive. So if you would like to replace the word preference because you think it's a word for choice with the word orientation, which is rooted in the word orient, that's where it comes from, well then you, sir, are a bigot. I can play the same game. They're desperately trying to find anything they can do to attack and insult Amy Coney Barrett. You know what the funniest thing is about this stupid hearings? Watching old white men berate a younger white woman, telling her why she's not qualified to have a very important job. Now, honestly, I don't care if someone wants to berate somebody. It's a job interview, essentially. Fine, ask questions. But don't come to me pretending to be a progressive and then calling out these phrases as offensive and letting your old white Democrat men attack a woman who would be placed on the highest court in the land. She seems quite successful to me, but is that the best they could do? Well, they've asked questions about her religion, and I guess that's fine, but this is just so absolutely insane. They say Barrett refused to say whether she agreed with the landmark 2015 Supreme Court ruling, Obergefell v. Hodges, which held that same-sex marriage is constitutionally protected. Barrett said recently that she holds the same judicial philosophy as former conservative Justice Antonin Scalia, for whom she clerked in the late 1990s. It is long established, at least as far as I can tell, that Supreme Court justices avoid opining on issues they may actually rule on later. Though I'm pretty sure that Ruth Bader Ginsburg did give her opinion on certain issues of gender equality and things like that. And I can respect it. And if Amy Coney Barrett says it is it's against judicial, what did she say? I don't want to say ethics, but basically a code of conduct. I think that's what she said. That you're not supposed to go up there and be like, here are all my political opinions, because sometimes as a judge, you rule against your political opinions if it makes sense. And so they're trying to accuse her of being a bigot, a religious bigot, a racist, etc. Scalia dissented in the Obergefell case and argued that same-sex marriage is not a legal right. Quote, I have no agenda, and I do want to be clear that I have never discriminated on the basis of sexual preference and would not ever discriminate on the... we just lost the website. Congratulations, Business Insider. There we go. She said, I would not ever discriminate on the basis of sexual preference, Barrett said in response to questioning about Obergefell. Like racism, I think discrimination is abhorrent. LGBT rights organizations and others quickly pointed out that the correct term is sexual orientation. I'm going to stop you right there. No, it isn't. I'm part Asian. I'm offended. How dare you use the offensive term orient to describe what you think is inoffensive? No, choose a different word. You want to play games? We'll play games. Let me show you this story from Axios. I covered this before, but it's important to bring up now for the greater context as we move into what I want to discuss is polarization. Democrats feel boxed in on strategy for Barrett confirmation fight. They basically said, do not, let me just read. Senate Democrats recognize the danger of attacking her on religion and things like that. Liberals mishandling this by boycotting or treating her with disrespect. Dianne Feinstein screwing it up. Someone looking like a religious bigot. One more fear on Barrett, the adoption thing. Got to avoid that. Some liberals tweeted slurs about adoption yesterday and were slapped down. A top Senate Democratic aide said the party has a 3-part plan for avoiding those traps. Healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. That's what they're trying. From The Nation, the Democrats might actually have a strategy to block Amy Coney Barrett. Democratic senators demonstrated unusual discipline as they hammered away at Barrett's threat to the Affordable Care Act. The problem is it may not be enough. With respect, the Democrats are holding true to their strategy of targeting ACB on healthcare. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because she's going to get confirmed anyway on party lines. That to me is scary. It shouldn't be that way. But I think what Democrats are really going for right now is they know they're going to lose this one. So they're essentially campaigning against Donald Trump. They're trying to rile up their base. First, I'll point out the obvious. In a story from the Daily Mail, they mention Amy Coney Barrett says she can set aside Catholic beliefs and gun ownership to rule fairly, but refuses to say if she'd overturn Roe v. Wade and same-sex marriage as she faces senators' questions on second day of confirmation hearing. I think these are fair questions. You own a gun. Are you going to be impartial? I will be. Okay, thank you. You're religious. Can you be impartial? I can be. Okay, thank you. Now, as it pertains to religious matters, giving an opinion on whether she would or wouldn't rule against them is something I think is entirely different. Now we're seeing something that is just, it's part of the polarization, but it's on the other side. We have this letter, an open letter to Amy Coney Barrett telling her to reject the nomination. They say, it is vital you issue a public statement calling for a halt to your nomination process until after the November presidential election. They say, first, voting for the next president is already underway. Next, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish was that her seat on the court remain open until a new president was installed. Are you kidding me? A new president? If Donald Trump is reelected, he won't be a new president. So no, not an issue. Finally, your nomination comes at a treacherous moment in the United States. Our politics are consumed by polarization, mistrust, and fevered conspiracy theories. Our country is shaken by pandemic and economic suffering. There is violence in the streets of American cities. The politics of your nomination, as you surely understand, will further inflame our civic wounds, undermine confidence in the court, and deepen the divide among ordinary citizens, especially if you are seated by a Republican Senate weeks before the election of a Democratic president and Congress. You have the opportunity to offer an alternative to all that by demanding that your nomination be suspended until after the election. We implore you to take that step. They say, we're asking a lot. If Vice President Biden is elected, you will lose your seat. They're basically saying, throw it up in the air. The last few, we still have several months of Trump's presidency, regardless of whether the election is going on right now. It's not until January that the new politicians will be sworn in, and January 20th, when the new president will be sworn in. So no, even if she, waits, puts her nomination process on hold until after the election, she can still be confirmed in the lame duck session. This is just absurdity, stacked upon absurdity. I'll tell you what's really scary. If the Democrats win the Senate, do you know what happens if the Democrats win the Senate? They're going to pack the courts. They're going to impeach. If Trump wins the presidency but loses the Senate, it's over. They'll pack the court. They'll impeach Trump. Done. Trump will be removed. They'll probably then impeach Mike Pence, and then they'll get, I guess, President Pelosi. They'll do it. I'm confident they will. And this is the polarization that I'm talking about. Considering what we've seen so far, with the lengths they've been willing to go, with the previous hearings and the attempted impeachment already, why wouldn't they impeach and remove Trump, then Pence, and install President Pelosi? Why wouldn't they do it? Now, if Biden wins, some people argue that the American people might actually elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but keep the Republican Senate as a check on them because people don't like Donald Trump. I don't know what to expect, in this upcoming election. But I can show you a couple things that I find particularly offensive, which will probably sway things for Trump. First, take a look at this article from the Daily News. S.E. Cupp writes, Donald Trump's supreme mistake. Amy Coney Barrett's nomination may well supercharge Democratic turnout. She brings up the Kavanaugh effect. She says Republicans promised Kavanaugh's nomination and Democrats' attacks on the judge would lead to a Kavanaugh effect in the coming midterms. Senate Judiciary Committee member Lindsey Graham said the Kavanaugh effect should actually be called Kavanaugh's revenge. And yet, Kavanaugh's revenge would have made a better pirate ride at Disneyland than it did in a Republican revolution. In sum, Democrats took control of the House with the largest midterm margin of victory in history. And 5 Democratic senators in states Trump won in 2016 won their reelections. What she's leaving out is that many Democrats lost their reelections. Many of them lost and were replaced by Republicans. And I believe that's how we got Josh Hawley. Maybe she's right. Maybe she is right. And that by, this nomination process, Democrats will get riled up. But I wonder what suburban housewives see in Amy Coney Barrett. You know why? Amy Coney Barrett has it all. You ever watch 30 Rock? Great show, by the way. Tina Fey's the main character, and she talks about how she wants to have it all, meaning be a mom, have kids, and have a successful career. And the argument is that it's not possible. You have to choose one or the other. Amy Coney Barrett, she is a federal judge nominated for the Supreme Court, one of the most successful positions in this country, and she has a large and loving family. Sounds like she's done it. She is the pinnacle of success. So I wonder if you're a run-of-the-mill, regular old American suburban mom, and you see the accomplishments of someone like Amy Coney Barrett, I believe there's probably a lot of people, and not just women, but men as well, that resonate. They see that, and they're inspired by that success, and they, it's inspiring. Well, now they're attacking Amy Coney Barrett on her religion, on her family. And I don't mean just the Democrats. I mean some Democrats. But let me show you this. How about some tweets? Zerlina Maxwell says, sorry, but this has been on my mind all day. Carry on. Amy Coney Barrett's wearing a mask. So what do? They show images from Handmaid's Tale of women wearing masks, I guess so they can't speak. Amy Coney Barrett is wearing a mask because she's trying to stop people from getting sick. They are using the fact that she's wearing a mask for COVID to insult her. How about this one? This is a tweet about the phrase orientation, which is just absurd. But you know what? Michael Moore wanted to chime in. Blessed be the fruit, he says, attacking Amy Coney Barrett on her religion with an edited photo. Under his eye, blessed be the fruit, says Michael Moore. And what does he show? Amy Coney Barrett wearing red and wearing a COVID face mask. Disgusting. And then next to it, I'm sorry, not Amy Coney Barrett. The tweet is disgusting. No, Amy Coney Barrett seems quite lovely and successful, and she seems to be she seems to be a fine person. The image next to hers is of a handmaid from Handmaid's Tale, wearing a mask and wearing red. This is just sickening behavior. This is not what Supreme Court hearings should be, but they've been this way, in the past. But look, let me show you some stuff. Antonin Scalia. The full Senate debated Scalia's nomination only briefly, confirming him 98-0. Unanimous confirmation of Antonin Scalia. Amy Coney Barrett says that she believes basically everything he does. She clerked for him, meaning she helped provide advice, opinions, insight on probably many of the rulings that Scalia held. Amy Coney Barrett said when asked about potential rulings that to give her thoughts, she'd have to look at the current precedent, look at the litigants' arguments, and converse among her clerks about what this means. And that means Antonin Scalia, she is, she trained, she worked under him. She was a clerk under him and likely very similar. So what is it that made it so that Scalia could be confirmed unanimously with only brief debate? And Amy Coney Barrett is told to step down by people at Notre Dame, telling her, don't do this. It's too polarizing. You have to stop. It has to go to the new president. Ruth Bader Ginsburg also had a particularly prominent, or I should say unified vote. The United States confirmed her by a 96-3 vote on August 3rd, 1993. Now, those are the good old days, huh? When polarization wasn't this serious of a problem. Now let's talk about Brett Kavanaugh. The Senate confirmed Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court as an associate justice on October 6th by a vote of 50-48. This was a party line vote. Only one Democrat voted for Kavanaugh, and it didn't matter. That's nuts. Where do you think we're going with Amy Coney Barrett? It's going to be party line, and that shows that the polarization is getting more and more intense. And I wonder where we're at. You see, you may have seen this graphic. I said, doesn't the data speak for itself? The left is moving further left. The right is only a little bit, but the median right is only slightly further right. Of course, many people were responding saying, you don't know what it means. It doesn't mean they're far left. I mean, on the chart, geez. The chart that I'm showing for those listening, Shows that in 1994, Democrats and Republicans, the median Democrat and Republicans, overlapped almost entirely. In 2004, they actually overlapped more so. It was very, very close. Something happened. In 2017, the median Democrat has moved super far left. Now, the left and the right on these charts is consistently liberal and consistently conservative. What this means is polarization, not whether someone's a socialist or a laissez-faire capitalist. This is about whether or not the Democrats and the Republicans are working together. The median Republican is working with Democrats to a certain degree. They're only a little bit to the right of where they were in 2004 and 1994. But the Democrat median is far away from Republicans right now. They're not working with Republicans. The polarization is getting bad to the point where, in terms of actual party line opinion, Republicans are slightly to the left of where they used to be. When they talk about things like jobs, the economy, Donald Trump is a moderate, according to Vox.com, and in my personal opinion as well. The left, however, has embraced a far left identitarian ideology, socialist policies. Consider this. Joe Biden was the vice president for the deporter in chief. That's what they called Barack Obama. Now Joe Biden says moratorium on deportation and decriminalize border crossings. That is a tremendous leap from where he was only a few years ago. That's the left becoming more ideologically far left and refusing to negotiate with Republicans. I don't think you'll find a Republican willing to entertain a bill that says decriminalize border crossings. I just don't think it's going to happen. How has the media handled things? Well, let me show you. The Republican Party has embraced American fascism. That's it. That's the media for you. From Business Insider. Where are we going? What is the outcome of all of this chaos and polarization? Biden landslide creeps into view, they say. Maybe. They'll pack the courts. They will absolutely, if Biden wins and they get the Senate, it is going to be the Democrats one-party rule. We've had Republican one-party rule, and Republicans are too feckless to do anything. So even though they had all three branches of government for the most part, they didn't get anything done. Isn't that funny? A bunch of these Republicans ended up leaving. Some Democrats won. We'll see what happens in 2020. It should be interesting. I mean, in less than a month. I say 2020. I mean the election. Maybe it'll be a Biden landslide. But we're already seeing absolute chaos, man. Protesters knocked down obelisk for Union soldiers. Yeah. Well, it had some offensive carvings on it originally about Native Americans, but this monument was placed in honor of those who fought for the Union in the Civil War. That got toppled. We're seeing San Francisco rents skyrocketing. Rents cratering as vacancies skyrocket. The cities are falling apart. And we've got mail-in voting problems. We've got voter registration problems. Everything just seems to be getting worse. Now, this isn't supposed to be like a black pill moment. For those who aren't familiar, just like absolute pessimistic nihilism. I'm not saying that. I'm just giving my critique on the current state of things. Listen, the night is always darkest before the dawn. Donald Trump may win in a landslide. And if he does, I think this will all end. If you want my honest opinion, if you want the insanity to stop, if you want things to go back to normal, to be better, then you need Trump and a Republican landslide. And I'll tell you why. As I showed you with that previous chart, the Democrats have veered far, far left. The Republicans control the Senate and the presidency. And that means they get to confirm and nominate and confirm the Supreme Court choices. The Democrats have tried to impeach, block, and impede every step of the way. They're not legislating. You know what the minority position is supposed to be doing in Congress, in my opinion at least? Negotiating. I'll tell you what. Here's what we should do. You're going to pass this bill, give us these provisions so we can, be there for our constituents. They're not doing that. When the moderate Democrats won in 2018, they immediately just went to impeach Trump. It's pathetic. These moderate Democrats that won are pathetic. They have no spine of their own, and they wasted everyone's time. Why would I want them to win? People do hate Trump, though. So the question right now is, do people hate Trump more than they fear what the left has become? And there's other ways to view it. I've talked to some locals, I've talked to some independent voters, and it seems like Trump is, I've not met someone who's telling me they're voting for Biden, to be completely honest. I've met people saying they're voting third party. I have lefty friends who tell me they're voting for Biden, but they've always been Democrats. The people I've met who are non-voters tell me they're voting for Trump, and they're upset about it, to be completely honest. They say that they hate the choices that we have, but they need to vote for Trump to get rid of whatever this is on the left. Yeah. If Donald Trump wins and the Republicans win and they win the House back, this will actually be a change from 2016 when they did control everything. But you still had these crony rhinos, Republican in name only. You currently have the Democrats in name only. If the Republicans sweep everything, they'll probably, pass some laws, get things they want. It'll be a loss for social liberals, but it will be a gain for this country. The far left needs to be told enough. The Democrats need to be told, you cannot negotiate with these people because if you do, we will not support you. But if you take all the riots and the violence and the vandalism, and that works for you, and you take the smears and the insults and the insanity, and that works for you, and you vote for these Democrats, you're telling the mob what they do works. And that will lead us down a dark path. I think Amy Coney Barrett is qualified for the job, should be confirmed, and I probably don't agree with her on tons of issues. Doesn't matter. She was nominated by the president who won an election. She will be confirmed by a Senate who won their elections. And as far as I can tell, she is qualified to be a Supreme Court justice, period. If I was in Congress, I wouldn't sit there and say, your religion, and the economy. I'd just simply say, Honorable Amy Coney Barrett, thank you for gracing our presence today. Only a few questions. How many years have you spent teaching at Notre Dame? I'm familiar with you. Okay, that's excellent. How many years have you spent as a federal judge? Only 3 years. Interesting. Do you believe that your lack of your limited amount of time on the federal court would inhibit your abilities in any way, or do you think you've gained enough experience to be a good Supreme Court justice? She gives her answer. If she answers in the affirmative, I have the skills to do this job. I am a professor. I am a judge. I just say, sounds to me like you're qualified. Thank you for your time. I yield. That's how I view things as, what are supposed to happen. Now, I don't mind if they want to ask her serious questions to make sure she's competent. But what we get instead is just politicking. It's all for the TV. It's all for the soundbite. We're not going to come to a better place if this is how things continue. Maybe after November, we see the Republicans sweep and it returns to normal. If the Democrats sweep, they'll make dramatic changes. They'll stack the courts, and it will prove the far left's mob violence and cancel culture works. That's not going to be fun. But I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.